Ladies and gentlemen, it looks like Mr. Vars 2 is back at it again with another Genshin video. And let's just be entirely honest here. I think it's safe to say that Vars 2 has been one of the biggest critics of the game in recent months, talking a lot about things like power creep, talking a lot about how certain characters, certain metas have done a lot of damage to the game. And I'm just interested in seeing, from the guy who's been there for quite a while, Genshin Impact 5 years later, has it gotten better or worse? Let's go ahead, let's take a look. What reality is taking place?
Happy anniversary to Genshin Impact, and it's not just any anniversary this time around, but the 5th one, half a decade. Year 5 marks a tremendous occasion for a new live service title, and while it's not quite as impressive as a game holding out for 10 or more, longtime gacha players will know that getting to this point alone is a big deal, especially given the fact that Genshin is still regarded by many as the largest and most commercially successful gacha game to this day.
I don't think it's even consideration. I don't even think that's the right term to use. I think it is the largest and the most successful gacha game that has ever graced the market. I think that's just a fact. I think what a lot of people don't realize is that these Sensor Tower revenue numbers that you're seeing up here, right? Occasionally, or really all the time, right? Genshin Impact is below other games. That's a fact. But these are just mobile numbers, mobile estimations. And there are games on here where their only clients they have are mobile ones. And so the revenue estimations that you see for games like Pokemon, TCG, or 11D Space, there's not really other elements to it because the only place you can monetize those games is on mobile or on the mobile stores. But the thing is, for games like Genshin Impact or WooWar, ZZZ, or any of those, the opposite is actually what takes place, ladies and gentlemen. Mobile is only one slice of the pie. It's only one part. Because there's also the PC sales, the console sales, all of that, the PlayStation, those ones. And these other games over here, right, that might overtake Genshin every once in a while, they don't have those other outlets. They don't have those other platforms. And that is really what the key differentiators should be between this and those games that you're seeing over there and these numbers that you're seeing over here. Just wanted to get that out there, right off the bat. Not saying that Vars is wrong about anything going on or any of the analysis that he's doing, but some people take these words as or some people take these numbers as a fact, and they think that this is the whole picture, when it's not.
I think I speak for everyone when I say whether you love or hate the game, whether it's still giving you the same magic it always has, or if you no longer feel excited for it anymore, that Genshin truly changed the gacha industry for the better. Prior to 2020, gachas carried a reputation for being low-quality, bootleg mobile games designed to do the absolute bare minimum to take as much of your money as they can. The stigma is still kind of there, but from production value to gameplay experience and whatnot, given credit where it's due, they certainly elevated the bar on what a gacha game should be.
I think the biggest thing that Genshin did to change the perception of gacha was pretty simple. They made it feel like your money was kind of being well spent. Because in the past, it's no lie at all to say that spending $300 to $400 on a literal PNG, because that's what they were literal PNGs, like 2D models, stuff like that, right? Or very, very low quality cell shaded stuff. That's a bit of a tall ask. And that was what it was known for. Think about Fate Grand Order. Costs you thousands of dollars for a character, right? Literally a fucking PNG with an animation or two, an AMV added on top. But here, you're getting 3D models, you're getting rendering, you're getting lighting, you're getting, the designs that you feel more, I guess, slightly real because they're actually, you've got the whole world that encompasses them as well. And I feel like that sort of shift, that sort of breakaway from the very instanced lobby-based sort of stuff that was done before, was a big part about its success.
The fact that most if not all major gacha games that came out or are about to come out have used Genshin Impact as the template of source to follow should attest to that. Arknights Enfield, Azure Promelia, Duet Night Abyss, Ananta, Neverness Deverness. People labeled them as Genshin Impact but with blank because Genshin was the one to push gacha from a niche audience into the mainstream consciousness.
What I view Genshin doing for the gacha space in its design is really similar to Henry Ford making the first car. Think about it this way. Henry Ford makes a car, right? It's got 4 wheels and an engine and then a chassis and all of that. Are you going to go ahead and then just say, oh, Audi, Volkswagen, Honda, Toyota, you guys are just Ford with Asia. Or you're just Ford, but German. right? No, that's not really what people say nowadays. They might have said it back then, right? But the reality of the situation is that somebody created, right, like the first good prototype, the good baseline, and then everyone keeps building on top of it. The car, when it was first made, looks a lot different than the car nowadays. And naturally, right, there are a lot of gacha games that they look a lot better than Genshin currently does right now, because there's only so much you can build upon when your foundation is a little dated. And that's what Genshin, at least in my opinion, is at this point.
A lot is attributed to Genshin's influence, for better or worse. And as someone who has made content on this game going on 4 years now, I wanted to make a video discussing how much the game has changed in the span of 5 years, what has improved, what stayed the same, and what got worse, to give you my honest thoughts on if the game is worth playing if you're a potential newcomer, or worth continuing to play if you already are.
That's a bit of a spicy topic. Oh boy, I'm ready for this one.
Unlike most other gachas, where there's really only one central way to play and experience the game, a big part of what contributed to Genshin's enormous mainstream success was that it tried to cater towards all types of players, from the super sweaty tryhards who like to min-max everything, to the casual, laid-back Animal Crossing lifestyle people who like to kill time leisurely futzing about and such. In light of that, oftentimes the sentiment that manifests in one faction of the game
This clears Vampire Survivors.
almost never is shared by the other, and vice versa. For context, my channel touches more on gameplay and characters, so naturally my audience would consist more of the people who like to gear up their units to be as powerful as they can and to take on the endgame as efficiently as possible, and less of the ones who spend their entire time customizing their Serenity pot. Be that as it may, I want to try to accommodate all possible facets of the game to give you as unbiased and comprehensive of an assessment as I can give.
I think that's a fair take to have, you know, making sure that the critique, making sure that the analysis addresses a whole wide audience. But I do think that there's naturally a balance, right? There's naturally a bit of a struggle when you try to break down and you try to like quantify things from a perspective of, oh, there's the stuff over here for the people that like the gameplay, and here's the stuff over here for people that want the more casual stuff. And there's no lie at all to say that when you add to one, you inherently sort of end up taking away from the other. I think that's definitely a dynamic that we've seen played out in Genshin Impact. We've seen it played out in HSR. We've seen it played out in Zenless Zone Zero, and of course in Wuthering Waves, where certain parts of the gameplay loop feel like they're being emphasized way more or way less as time has gone on. And, you know, that's led to a lot of people having like secondhand questions or just like thinking, oh, is this really the game that I thought it was going to be? Or has like the target audience shifted over time?
That Genshin has had a checkered past when it comes to improving the gameplay experience would be a very, very big understatement. Much of what people recall from internet discourse surrounding the game is usually some kind of public backlash or controversy that took place. For instance, a huge amount of goodwill was lost in early 2024 when Hoyo deemed it appropriate to provide every player 3 intertwined fates as an expression of gratitude for 3 years of Lantern Rite, aka 3 Chinese New Years. It seemed awfully miserly of a reward for such an occasion, and while technically it has nothing to do with the actual gameplay experience directly, accounting for the main way to obtain characters being to pull for them using a limited resource that can only be supplemented by way of microtransactions, stingy rewards do matter in the scope of a player's time spent playing the game.
I'm not gonna lie, I feel like this video was actually maybe gonna have a decent positive spin for Genshin Impact, but the fact that Vars decided to open up this one with the whole fucking 3 years, 3 polls, it leads me to believe this may be a negative video. Perhaps I'm speaking too soon, but I'm beginning to think that's where the direction of this is about to go.
Just tend to be evaluated by how generous they are to free-to-play players. I figured this is a good point to start. Plainly speaking, I don't think magnanimity was ever a hallmark priority for Genshin Impact. In their defense, and not like other gachas that effectively force you to pull for every single character every week if you want to keep up with the meta.
He's talking about back then, right? Surely he's talking about back then and not the present state of Genshin Impact.
But assuming average luck and doing every possible thing that can give you primo gems, you're only going to receive about give or take 60 to 70 pulls per patch, one patch being 6 weeks or approximately a month and a half. To reach the game's 5-star soft guarantee, you need about 80 to 90 pulls. So even if you do everything possible to collect primo gems, it takes more than a full version for you to have enough to pull a guaranteed 5-star.
It's about 3 versions. 3 versions, or with 42 days per version, 42 days, it's 120 days of version, or 120 days you can pull a new character, guaranteed. And so essentially, you get to pull a limited 5-star unit 3 times a year, assuming you lose every single 50-50 and assuming you go to pity.
If you alternate between winning and losing a 50-50, you'll on average be able to pull for give or take 3 or 4 featured 5 stars over the course of a year.
Rewatch.
Now, according to the Genshin bookkeeping sheet, which documents all the free pulls you get from the very beginning of the game to now, you'll notice the trend hasn't really moved all that much. The game gives more or less the same amount of free pulls today that it used to in the past. Does the game require more characters to be owned than before? Because if it's the same as back in version 1 and 2, then Genshin not increasing their generosity isn't that big of a deal. I would say yes, we now have 3 endgame modes, each with their own set of constraints and restrictions. The need for a diverse and varied roster of characters to make teams around is measurably higher in the current day.
Unbelievably higher. You guys see these amazing animations over here? You see this whole lunar charged? Wait, let me go see if I can find Lunar Bloom. Anyway, let me go see if I can find Lunar Bloom, right? We saw the lunar charged over here. Where's Llama at? Hey, where's she at, though?
We now have 3 endgame modes, each with their own...
I guess it's built into it somewhere. They literally have bosses in the game right now, right? Where it's like, if you don't have this lunar charge mechanic, if you don't have this lunar blue mechanic, you cannot beat me. Straight up, in their endgame, they literally have bosses right now that are like, if you don't have the newest character's mechanic, you cannot challenge me. You are not able to fight me. That to me is just insane. Knowing that these endgame modes are refreshing on like a 30-day basis. They're refreshing on a 30 to 40 day basis, but then you can only pull reasonably 3 characters a year, but it's also like you need every new character to do the endgame. They've never had restrictions to this high of a degree, to this predatory degree, ever in the game. Basically, from version 1.0 all the way to version 5.2, it was good. It was fine. Not really restrictive. And then 5.3 hit, and they were just like, all right, let's just make a bunch of unplayable content unless you're going to spend hundreds of dollars on the game every month. And they haven't looked back ever since.
Set of constraints and restrictions. The need for a diverse and varied roster of characters to make teams around is measurably higher in the current day. More pressing is the fact that a non-negligible amount of free pulls are obtained by completing those endgame modes every time they refresh. So to get more characters, you need more pulls. But to get more pulls, you need more characters. Outside of the endgame though, the rest of the game's content ranging from story to events to navigating your day-to-day activities and
people don't realize that endgame is one of the most significant sources of pulls that you have every single patch. The endgame literally is like a close to like, I think 15 to 20%, if not more, maybe 15 to 30% of the actual pulls that you get in a patch. So not being able to clear the endgame, having a character restriction in the endgame, it's something that literally snowballs over time and snowballs super significantly and just results in you even having less opportunities to pull the characters that you need to clear the endgame so that you can pull the characters that you need. It's vicious once you think about it. And it's never been an issue until the past year of this game.
whatnot require practically 0 characters, so if you're someone who's more into the narrative and storytelling side of Genshin and you already have your favorite units, free pulls are of little consequence. It comes down to what part of the game you enjoy the most. That being said, even the quote-unquote for fun players are negatively affected by not having access to the majority of characters in the game. Your starter Pokemon could be your favorite, but imagine playing through a Pokemon game having access to only 20 out of say 100 Pokemon for the first year of the game. Not a very enticing proposition, is it? And with Genshin having more characters than ever before, it could be disheartening to find out you won't be able to get them. So from a gacha point of view, the game is not improved whatsoever. If anything, circumstantially speaking, it may have gotten worse.
I think it's 1,000,000% worse. I think circumstantially speaking is actually putting it really lightly. Think about Genshin 2.0. You have 3 limited characters that you get to pull from Genshin 1.0 to Genshin 2.0. You will probably be able to take those 3 limited characters and clear the endgame with them for the next 2 years. Right now, in Genshin Impact, they're adding in a character-specific boss every single update that needs this mechanic. I'm pretty sure that Enefa will, like, not be usable in the endgame. Enefa, Flynn's, Lauma, there's going to be a rotating set of lunar reactions, right, that will come in. And within, I think, 4 months, Enefa and Flynn's will, like, not be usable in the endgame, and they'll have a new reaction, a new mechanic that will come in and then take their spot. And so these units have gotten an even shorter shelf life. Because think about it this way. Can you use any of your Natlan units in the current Stygian Onslaught? Is anyone using Natlan units in the Stygian Onslaught? Anyone using a Kanish? Anyone using a Mualani? Anyone using a Chaska? Right? Maybe the only one that's being used is Mavuika Sitlali, right? And Jalonin. Those might be the main ones because they just do like double the damage of all the other teams in the game. But that's kind of like the circumstance. You're noticing that a lot of units are just being have lost their shelf life completely because of the immense amount of power creep that's going on. So the gacha system just has to be worse because all your pulls are worth way less than what they used to be.
On the subject of characters are, in my opinion, the strongest part of Genshin Impact and part of how the game was able to enter the larger video game sphere. Gachas in the past were primarily known for quantity over quality. They would pump out copious amounts of units, many of whom were basically cannon fodder or inventory clutter, typically amounting to nothing more than a sprite with some flavor text and array of abilities. Exceptions apply, of course. Some gachas gave voice acting to their units, and some went as far as to make live 2D visuals or give background quests to their units. But it was Genshin that really took things to the next level. Each and every individual character was a fully fleshed out cast member with entire dialogues, personalities, visuals, designs, and roles in the story. From the most integral centerpieces in the main questline like the Archons to supposed filler characters that run a clothing boutique or dance in an opera theater, Hoyo spares no expense giving each unit a distinct thematic purpose in Genshin.
This has a drawback that I think a lot of people don't recognize. If you don't fucking like the unit, you feel like you're wasting your time getting like exposed to like all this story and side quests and events with them. I think that's one of the worst things that puts people off is you don't care about the character, but you get content about the character shoved down your fucking throat, or you get a minigame focused around the character shoved down your fucking throat if you want the primo gems, you want the materials, you want the resources to play the rest of the game. And so this is kind of like the end circumstance, right? You feel like you're forced into doing a bunch of shit, a bunch of content, learning about characters, you're learning about shit you didn't want to learn. And that, I think, is one of the biggest barriers to Genshin Impact is that there's a lot of fucking stuff in there, a lot of units, a lot of characters, a lot of story elements that you just don't care about, that feel irrelevant, that feel like garnish on top of like an already completed dish. And the end result is that it feels like it makes the experience worse as opposed to better or more fleshed out.
That's why this game is so memorable. When characters are more than just words or images on the screen, it gives people something to grow attached to. Genshin has so much fan art and fan-made content of its characters because the characters are rich in detail. Up until Natlan, the community was in almost unanimous agreement that its characters were well made and well put together.
Then the Fire Nation attacked.
Even in the case of Natlan, while many people took issue with the rather unusual and incoherent visual designs of version 5's characters, in defense of Natlan, they're still visually striking and they have meaningful roles in their respective lines of work. Mavuika is every bit as nuanced and fleshed out of a character as the Archons who came before her. It's just their biker suit and motorcycle that leave a weird taste in people's mouths.
I think this is just Vars doing damage control. Yeah, Natlan's a piece of steaming dog shit. I think this is just him getting ahead of like the brigade that will ensue and consume this video if he were to not defend Natlan like fucking crazy. Because there are just a lot of like die-hard individuals, right, who will find any reason possible to tell you, oh, I assure you, dear player, Jalonin wearing jean shorts and being a DJ and playing on a literal like fucking DJ board in a tribal setting makes lore sense. I assure you, dear viewer, Mavuika's motorcycle that didn't exist until version 5.3 in the story. It was definitely not added in as a last-minute feature in her design. It's like, it's shit like that where it's just like, yes, none of this makes sense. People are trying to force it to make sense, and if you don't agree with the nonsensical theories that they put out, they start attacking you. But that's the kind of commitment that the Genshin community has when it comes to like these characterizations, when it comes to the story and this type of stuff. It's wild.
I would argue character association and affiliation has always been Hoyo's strong suit. People not only love the heroes, but they also enjoy the side characters, and especially the villains. The Fatui Harbingers bring about the same obsession among Genshin fans that the Akatsuki does to Naruto fans, and I'd say that's only gotten better over the years. Narratively speaking, we're about to reach a critical juncture in the story, one with how many important characters have been teased in version 6, along with very important characters like the Four Shades. Some of these units have been built up ever since the beginning of the game, and I'm optimistic towards the future of its characters from a storytelling point of view. Maybe soon Dainsleif will be playable.
I think Nod Cry is basically like Hoyo recognizing, man, we actually probably got to do something about this story, don't we? I think that's the realization from Hoyo. Because basically, if you think about the overarching plot of the game, think about the past 5 years. What did you learn about the main story in Mondstadt? Nothing. What did you learn in Inazuma or in Liyue? Nothing. What did you learn in Inazuma? Nothing. What did you learn in Sumeru? More than nothing. And what did you learn in Natlan? Oh, you probably lost knowledge in Natlan, if we're frankly being real. And it's like, there's been almost no plot progression regarding, like, your goddamn sibling, which was, like, the main point of the game. And it feels like the last 5 years have literally just been a filler arc for the game. But the entire game's just been a filler arc. This would be like watching... I'm just going to use an anime, right? This would be like watching fucking Naruto. And instead of the story starting off in the Hidden Leaf Village, you start, like, Naruto's at, like, a food competition. And he's, like, eating ramen. And, like, there's an entire, like, 100-episode arc of him training to be a competitive food eater. And then on episode 101, he goes to the Hidden Leaf Village. And then the story starts from there. That's what Genshin Impact has, like, felt like. The entire first 5 years of the game have been a fucking side quest. And now there's been some minor plot progression about the whole, like, actual plot. It's just, wow, there's been a lot of garbage before that. Plot-wise.
What about gameplay, though? That part's a bit more divisive. It's no secret that in recent years, Genshin's power scaling has begun to ramp up when
right here. You can see, right? Imagine you don't look at this chart prior to version 5.3. It's gradual, but it's not bad. Now look at it from 4.4. No, actually, look at it from here, 4.7. Gradual, but just looks decent, right? Then just look at how it shifts as Natlan is released. And get ready, this is going to be the big one. Look at how it shifts after Mabuika and Sitlali are released in version 5.3. Boom! 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 It just keeps going higher and higher. Because they fucked up the game by adding in 2 characters who deal 60% more damage than every other team in the game.
What made the game so successful in the mainstream was that for how stingy they were in providing free mods, the game practically had no power creep. Raiden Shogun was certainly stronger than most version 1 DPS units, and Nahida was stronger than most version 2 sub-DPS units, but generally speaking, you were able to perfectly clear Spiral Abyss using a 2-year-old team because not only was the game's difficulty not increasing year after year, which depending on who you ask might be a good or bad thing, but characters were also not beating over each other by that much either. Things are a bit different now. Mind you, Genshin's power creep is nowhere near as conspicuous or egregious as Honkai Star Rail's, and
This is like a competition to see, like, who has more diseases. You only have syphilis? Well, loser, I've got HPV, HIV, and AIDS on top of it. That's what this feels, that's what this section feels like right now. Yeah, it's got power creep, but not as much as HSR.
By far, Universe is better than power creep in other gacha games. However, versions 4 through 6 present a considerable leap in power not just when compared to version 1 through 3, but amongst each other as well. You're under more pressure to have as many good characters as possible in a game that charges a month's rent in order to get all of them. I would say it's still more or less manageable though, but that only applies to if you're a long-time player. I can't imagine how difficult the game would be starting out fresh in 2025. It would take you more than a full year to achieve a perfect Stygian onslaught clear.
My take is, I think Vars is actually incorrect about his whole starting in 2025 situation. So this is the reality of starting new free-to-play accounts in games with massive amounts of power creep. It's actually good. And the example that I'll use is Mr. Pokey trying to prove a point with his stupid-ass Bob challenge that makes no fucking sense at all. Because the strategy is simple. every character that gets released is way fucking stronger than the last character that got released. And so, if you make a new account, the only thing you have access to are the new, broken, overpowered units. And so, the only thing you'll have available to pull after clearing all of the existing content, which there's a lot of in Genshin, all the map exploration, all of that, you only have broken units to pull on. And so, you just simply pull on all the broken fucking units, then make broken teams, and then go mindlessly clear all the endgame content with your broken teams. All it does is prove that, yes, free-to-play players can actually have a decent time because they don't have an opportunity to pull anything that's bad. But in a balanced game, being free-to-play is a little bit bad, right? Because, oh, all those pass pulls that other people had, right? Oh, like, just imagine, right? If Ayaka wasn't a piece of dog shit nowadays, or Ayato wasn't a piece of dog shit nowadays, somebody having an Ayaka and an Ayato, if Genshin was still balanced, would be an asset to their account. But in the present day, these two characters are fucking useless. And so you're actually, as a new player starting the game, there are some 2, 3, 4-year-old Genshin accounts that have less overall value than a new one. Because the new one will have more primo gems, more permanent content, and can just pull, instead of pulling this piece of shit, this dumbass, stupid samurai, you could just pull her. The cool, new, sexy Abyss Lady, who does double her damage, and fulfill the same role. You just don't pull this, you don't waste your primo gems on this garbage, and you just pull this one instead. Make sure you pull her partner, too. Who cares if you don't have this? Who cares if this isn't there? Who cares if you don't have Ayato, right? Because you're just going to pull the next broken Hydro character instead. All these past characters are worth nothing.
Depending on the elements accessible, I'm fairly certain you can't even access the higher difficulties of Imaginarium Theater, let alone make an attempt at them. Yes, I'm aware endgame is not meant to be accessed immediately, that defeats the purpose of endgame, but that amount of time is simply too much to ask for a lot of players. Once more, people who care less about being a full sweat and choosing instead to treat Genshin like Animal Crossing are practically unaffected by it. Be that as it may, as an RPG with RPG stuff and RPG things you want to do, unless you're either extremely lucky and or you join at the perfect time to get the perfect units, I can't fathom how a new player is able to properly experience the full scope of the game in a reasonable time frame without dropping like half a grand on it. Spiral Abyss? Maybe. You could pull a broken 5-star unit and cobble together a working team, but Imaginarium and Stygian are almost out of the question. For some of you, it might appear like I'm zeroing in towards the gamer side of things and not the rest of Genshin, but understand that as an RPG, essentially everything you do, including things that aren't necessarily related to combat and progression, are indirectly motivated by combat and progression.
Oh man, I think the issue that he described is actually, it is worse than I thought. Because I think they added the Imaginarium Theater just to be a cancerous roster check, so that if you are a new player, you just can't get the rewards. You know what? Now that I think about it, that's actually its true purpose. It's just simply just punish people that are new players that just simply don't have the 30+ characters required to even start the mode. Now that I think about it. Yeah, that was just the purpose all along, because you need 28 characters to do it. There's only a certain number of 4 stars. There's only 3 4 stars every banner. It's just like, hey, time to start throwing some pulls at the standard banner, bucko, and hope you get lucky getting the units that you need. And then for Stygian, to be honest, I think every person would need several months to complete Stygian Onslaught if they're not pulling the newest units. And don't worry, if you just play the game for 3 months, for 3 versions, you should be able to clear Stygian Onslaught. And the reason for that is simple. Because, like I said before, you just pull the broken new unit and you'll easily clear the endgame. Stygian Onslaught is based around, again, bosses that are countered by the newest and broken unit. So, if you just pull everything that's coming out over the next 3 versions, you should have no struggles at all in this game mode.
Towards the gamer side of things and not the rest of Genshin, but understand that as an RPG, essentially everything you do, including things that aren't necessarily related to combat and progression, are indirectly motivated by combat and progression. The key reason players do events or do quests and stuff is to get resources to make their characters stronger so they can take on stronger enemies.
You'd be surprised at how many individuals do events that they really don't want to fucking do that feel like a pain in the ass because if they don't do the events, they can't play the rest of the game. It's a significant number. And a lot of people seem to think that, oh, all these people are playing these events. These events must actually be good because everyone's doing them. Half the people are doing them because they need to do them. Otherwise, they won't be able to play the rest of the game.
Only a small fraction of players are willing to do exploration or tedious work if there wasn't a reward behind it. Having said that, however, one part of Genshin that unequivocally is improved over the years would be the world itself, in that you can actually check out the world. New players are blessed. You have Mondstadt, Liyue, Inazuma, Sumeru, Fontaine, Nanland, Dragonspine, and Konomiya, the Chasm, Sea of Bygone Eras, Ancient Sacred Mountain, Nordcry. Day 1 players had to experience everything bit by bit, but for those starting out right now, you quite literally, unexaggeratedly, have one of the best free-to-play open-world exploration games of all damn time. There is so much exploration, so much to check out and see, so much to collect, and so many things to kill, that it likely borders on 300 hours of gameplay, plus
Ain't nobody got time for that.
possibly more. The sheer breadth of exploration content in Genshin, ranging from scenery to puzzles to questing, has to be overwhelming. If you're someone who enjoyed Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, you're gonna have an amazing time with this game. That is one part of Genshin that I think deserves acclaim. This game
800 fucking hours, bro. I'm just trying to think about that. Like, there ain't no way I'm spending 700 hours on fucking exploration where nah, bro. I think that's the thing. I think a lot of people, it's just, this is cool. The Genshin exploration is cool for like 5 hours of gameplay. And I think after that, you start thinking, oh my gosh, I'm fucking done with this. Do you realize that there have been houses bought, children raised, families dependent on Genshin account pilots that go ahead and explore these long-ass, boring-ass regions for people that don't give a fuck and just want the primo gems? There have been families started by the revenue that these account pilots generate because they don't want to play this game, but they still want the rewards from the exploration. I'm being entirely honest with you. I know some people that have made their life around Genshin piloting because it's so unfun for a huge part of the population. Sometimes more is actually less. And I think a lot of people that don't play Genshin anymore will tell you that the exploration, there's too much. And it takes too long. And it's a big reason for why they quit. And if you need an additional reminder, you remember exploring Sumeru? Yeah, I don't either. I try to wipe it from my memory as well.
100 hours of gameplay, possibly more. The sheer breadth of exploration content in Genshin, ranging from scenery to puzzles to questing, has to be overwhelming. If you're someone who enjoyed Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, you're gonna have an amazing time with this game. That is one part of Genshin that I think deserves acclaim. This game is gorgeous and varied. It kinda sucks that this game doesn't have legacy events the same way they have in HSR and Wuthering Waves, because I think in Konomiya would be way more enjoyable if the Three Realms Gateway offering event was still in effect, but that aside, you'll still have more than enough to do. Providing you don't care too much about character progression and just want to check stuff out, I could not recommend Genshin Impact more. Not a single other—
I think that's fair, though. If you're somebody that just really likes walking around and just looking at shit, but you don't really care about gameplay and stuff, yeah, I mean, I think Genshin's one of the best walking simulators out there, because that's what you're going to be doing 90% of the time, because your stamina bar is so fucking small. It's good for that. So I mean, it's just like for the giga casuals, right? Fantastic experience. It's just that's not really a game at that point, at least in my opinion.
Other gacha game reaches the same heights of exploration
It's like a slightly interactive movie, except the movie's really boring too.
that Genshin does. So I suppose even if it will take you a year to fully reach endgame, on the bright side, you'll have plenty of things to do during that time. Day 1 players had to run into the content wall every single patch. Meanwhile, new players get to enjoy 5 years of content all at once. Quality of life is also one thing that has improved a fair bit. Slow it may have been, especially in contrast to competing titles, I'll acknowledge that Genshin is definitely moving in the right direction at least. I'm not going to list off everything they've done over the years, but the game is in a much better spot now than it was before in terms of user experience.
Let's hear it. Hey, as far as I'm concerned, I still gotta wait 17 fucking days. I still gotta wait 17 fucking days to get my weapon ascension mats.
Many more conveniences that make the game less tedious or bothersome to complete. There are still quite a few things that Genshin really needs to address, but for example, stuff like allowing us to see the force stat of a 3-line artifact without—
Hey, here's a crazier idea. How about you just make every artifact a 4-stat liner? you want to know what? Yeah, that would have made that would have been a better quality of life, wouldn't it? Yeah, just make every artifact a fucking 4-stat liner.
Not having to actually put XP into it was a monumental improvement to the artifact grinding experience. A couple more improvements like that and the game will be in great shape. As for what to expect in regards to Genshin Impact going forward, I really don't know.
Was that the quality of life section? That was like 10 seconds long!
I think the main problem with this game is that a lot of players, myself included—
That was it? Wait, I'm sorry. Wait, I feel like, did I like skip ahead? Was there like an editing or a compiling issue? Was there like an entire paragraph that he forgot to record? Like, I swore he was about to like go through the list of quality of life and then listen out one feature. Is that not what happened?
Before, in terms of user experience, with many more conveniences that make the game less tedious or bothersome to complete. There are still quite a few things that Genshin really needs to address, but for example, stuff like allowing us to see the force stat of a 3-line artifact without having to actually put XP into it was a monumental improvement to the artifact grinding experience. A couple more improvements like that and the game will be in great shape. As for what to
Okay, that was it. Okay, that was it.
Expect in regards to Genshin Impact going forward, I really don't know. I think the main problem with this game is that a lot of players, myself included, expected a lot more from it than it was able to deliver on. In my video on why Genshin Impact is losing popularity, I talked about how the game will never die per se, but it's disheartening to see what it could have been. I still retain the same sentiment. Genshin had the potential to be so much more than what it is. Whether a more elaborate combat system or a more nuanced and comprehensive endgame experience, or perhaps a better intertwining of the casual side of things, exploration, questing, and serenity pot with—
Get that shit off my screen. What is this, fucking Sims?
the sweaty side of things, endgame content and
Now that's the shit I'm talking about right there, buddy.
character optimization, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't disappointed. All the same, it would be foolish and needlessly cynical to disregard what Genshin did manage to do. Yes, the bad stuff about it, the terrible progression system, the subpar endgame, the expensive units, the lack of generosity and free stuff and whatnot, do lay a damper on the game's experience, and you're perfectly justified to criticize and even dislike the game because of it. Heaven knows I have. But that aside, Genshin Impact is a pretty solid game all things considered. My suggestion to anyone watching, whether you're a day one player losing interest in the game or someone looking to get into it for the first time, is to adapt your expectations.
I think the best way to think about Genshin Impact is literally only use the Traveler, don't engage with the gacha at all, and kind of just play the game like it's a like you're Aether, you're Lumine, you don't have any other units, and just play the game on like baby mode story. Only play the story, don't bother with any of the other shit, because all the systems around like the progression, the end game, all of that, the building, the artifacts, it's just all a bunch of dog shit. Right? It's just literally all a bunch of dog shit, and then there's no balance. It's just every new release is more broken than the next. They had something decent going, right? For the first couple of years. Then there wasn't any progression going on. It's just, you know, it was a good roster with all the fucking issues regarding endgame and all of that. Now they've rotated into just taking the HSR model, and I have the same take with HSR that I also currently have with Genshin. They're story-based games. And unless you want to donate hundreds of dollars every version to the company, it should stay a story-based game. Because they are making it so that anything that you decide to pull on now has an expiration date of like 5 to 6 fucking months. I think even like the Herta, I think she got power crept already. I don't even think she's like good anymore. And she got released at the start of the fucking year. She got released at the start of the year. I heard she like doesn't even clear content anymore. Not even a full year of service for these units that you're potentially spending $450 on. I think that's crazy. I think that's wild. Maybe that's just me, but not even a year of service until they're already releasing better versions of these units that make and devalue your previous pulls. Why even like engage in a progression system like that? These devs don't care, or at least the balance team doesn't care.
I don't blame people for doing this, as I'm guilty of it myself, but people have a tendency to look at things in a certain way and then refuse to change or adjust their perspective on it for one reason or another. However, there is merit in shifting one's attitude in a more positive light. When I was talking to some friends about Genshin, one of them mentioned how amazing it must feel to start the game now compared to day one. Initially, I was like, what the hell is he talking about? The game would be horrible to play now. You missed all those years of limited characters, events, and time-gated resources that—
This point doesn't matter when all of the characters that you missed are not usable in any of the content. So it's like, that's what I mean. It's actually a good experience to start nowadays.
you'll never be able to make up for. Then again, you also never had to deal with all the crappy stuff too, and when accounting for stuff like the near limitless amount of exploration, that's definitely something to give credit to. Genshin Impact has—
He should have mentioned, and it doesn't matter if they missed all those old characters because they were steaming piles of dog shit. Who do you think right now is complaining that they didn't get a chance to pull Klee? Who do you think right now is, other than, you know, the usual suspects, like, who do you think is complaining right now that they didn't have a chance to pull Venti? Who do you think is complaining that they didn't have a chance to pull fucking Kamisato Ayato? Nobody, because they're all dog shit.
tried out for a lot of people, but if I were to be objective, I think it's a great game to play casually. I speak to both longtime and new players that this game is meant to be played casually and for fun. I'm forever going to be talking about meta and gameplay and stuff because that's just the kind of player I am, but trust me when I say the less seriously you take Genshin, the more fun you'll have. People who play their favorite characters regardless of how good they are, enjoy the events of their friends, mess around in the teapot, and ugly cry during the Fontaine Archon quest are the real winners of this game. So is Genshin Impact better or worse 5 years later? I would say it's different, neither better nor worse.
Treat this game like a fucking AOL chat room. Treat this game like a Discord channel. And you'll probably have more fun with it.
The game has changed a lot since 2020, but in some ways has stayed the same too. Then again, us players have changed a lot, I'm sure. Who knows? But either way, if you enjoyed the video, I would appreciate it if you left a like and subscribe.
I would say this was a very interesting video by Vars. I think he was being extremely delicate with his wording, and I think he was being pretty delicate with his phrasing. Definitely made sure to like bring in that casual perspective, because I really think that's the best thing he could have said about the game. And I think those last couple of statements, those last sentences at the end of the video, really bring it home. The less you play Genshin, the more fun it is. The less you care about, like, the mechanics of the game, the more fun it is. That's like saying, basketball's a really fun sport if there aren't any rules. Okay, great. Is it really basketball anymore? And then when our main sort of takeaway is, Genshin's a really fun game when you don't think of it as a game. Is it really a game anymore? Is Genshin Impact good? Yes, I think Genshin Impact is good. Is Genshin Impact a good game? I don't think so. But is it a good walking simulator? Is it a good, like, time waster if you literally have nothing else to do? Is it a good way to socialize with 40-year-old men pretending to be girls? It's one of the best ways to do that. So they got things like the UGC, right? I think they're really playing on the strengths of the model. You know, really preying on, like, the target audience that they have over there. So, yeah, I kind of just view it as there's a lot of lost potential over here. And there's a lot of target audience shifting that has been done for this game. They're clearly trying to address two parts. The Giga hardcore who want to pull every unit to stay on top of the meta, as well as the like very like whimsical, casual, not really taking the game seriously, just, you know, having fun with like the story and stuff like that. And that's pretty much all there is to it nowadays. And, well, that middle ground, it's an unaddressed part of the population. But I think it's small enough that Hoyoverse just doesn't care anymore. And it is what it is. We'll just have to see if another shift ends up occurring in the future as more competition ends up coming out. Because, let's be honest here, I think for the hardcore audience, they might end up moving to something else that has more actual gameplay. That'll be that for this one. Awesome video by Vars, but, you know, with some caveats. Let me know what you all thought. Peace.